Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Lessons in Savvy Living. I'm your host, Sia Knight, and today I have an interesting guest. Well, every day I have interesting guests because I had some fabulous women to respond to call for guests. But today I'm going to have Melissa Salerno. Did I say that right? Salerno?
Salerno.
So,
Mhm. Yeah.
so the first question that I ask all my guests is, what are three things that people should know about you, Melissa?
Three things that people should know about me. I love my family and I love to have fun and I'm always learning.
Oh, okay. That's great. That's great. So today's episode, we're talking about the death of a sibling. And
Mhm.
Melissa, you have a story around that particular topic. So can you tell us what your story is? Excuse me, what your story is?
Yeah. I have three siblings. All of my siblings were what is called half siblings, meaning that none of us were full blood, both parents, relationally, or however you would say that. I say that just because technically that's what it is. It's not that I felt any less love for them. But my younger brother was about 16 years my junior,
Hmm.
and him and I were shared the same mom. And so when he was born, I lived with my mom, which I've done, my entire young adult life until moving out. Um, and he was really what I would have considered like my first baby.
Hmm.
I felt an overwhelming, deep, internal, nurturing sense of mothering toward him. Um, I would have thrown myself in front of danger for him. I would have killed for him. I would have died for him. And um, until I had my own daughter, um, I thought that that was as full as my heart could get. I didn't know that I could love even. I had even more of a capacity for love. So um, we grew up together because when he was born, I was still residing with my mom. I was still in high school, and so we grew up. Probably trying to think. I think I moved out around 21 or 22, and but our relationship, being that there was this large age difference, wasn't that of a typical sibling relationship. There was no sibling rivalry. There was no share your toys kind of thing. He was really my little sidekick. I babysat him a lot. I took him everywhere with me. Um, and my parents really, I had a very liberal mom and stepfather. They really trusted me quite a bit, and they would go out of town for weekends and leave him in my care. And so we were kind of like frick and frack. When I met and married my husband and moved out, my brother, whose name was Travis, also became very close to my husband. And my husband had a niece who was the same age as my brother. And so the four of us would often do things together and go on little, not dates, but kind of like dates. We would go mini golfing or to the movies, and we spent a lot of time with the kids. We were really close with the kids, even after my husband and I moved into our own apartment. My brother's father, so my stepfather, suffered a massive heart attack and died when my brother was 4. And so from that point on, I think my brother really relied on my husband as like a male figure in his life. My mom remarried, I think, when my brother was about 9, and they moved into my stepfather's home. And my brother grew up, aside from the fact of losing his father, my brother grew up with a lot of things that I didn't have growing up.
Mm,
My mom was not very financially stable. She had an addiction problem when I was a kid. And so it was almost as if we had two separate parents. And so when my brother was growing up with all of these things and time and attention, and my mom was this PTA mom and taking him here and taking him there, and I didn't have any of that. Sometimes when he was unappreciative, I would get really, really angry, and I would be a little bit tough on him about that. um, so my brother and I continued always to be very close, but it was always I think he looked at me, even though I really tried as he became older and went into adolescence, I really tried to encourage him to look at me as someone he could turn to if he ever needed help or assistance, that I'd been there, done that, and that I was no angel. I don't think he felt that he wanted to ever disappoint me. And so I don't know that he utilized me or my husband as a source of wisdom, let's say, or
right.
as confidants. Um, he wound up kind of really, as he began to be an older teenager, really almost taking a turn where he became a little bit lost.
Mm,
And he graduated high school, but barely, and began at our local community college. And I just really saw him struggling. My brother was a sweet kid. He was very sensitive, very funny, very, very loving, like a giant bear. But he was not someone who had found the ability to be a leader. And so a lot of times he went with the crowd. I think he had a lot of internal pain from losing his father. And, my mom was a very difficult person to be around at times. She had her own baggage. She did the best she could, but she had her own backstory that she was kind of bringing to the table. And I think my brother was just really lost. And she wound up, he flunked out of college his first semester. She wound up asking him to leave her home because he wasn't going to school and he wasn't holding a job, and he was just overindulging in drugs and alcohol and hanging out with people who were not friends, not people we knew.
mhm,
Um, and so he kind of flip flopped around different couch surfing and wound up staying with a friend, and came over for Thanksgiving dinner, had a friend pick him up, um, and wound up being the passenger in a drug driving accident.
mm,
And he was in a vehicle that was going down a residential street at a high rate of speed, lost control of the car. His side, he was pinned in the vehicle by a tree, and the car burst into flames.
mm,
And so he did not even, the investigating officer told me, because I asked him, that he probably didn't live much beyond impact. So um, he was 20 years old. And so that devastated our family. And that it changed the trajectory of my life, of everyone in our entire family. Um, and I would say that that was the first really intense loss that I've experienced, and it it knocked the wind out of me for sure for a long time.
And how long
No.
ago was this, Melissa?
Last Thanksgiving was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
So, in some ways, there's been some time, but in some ways, I bet it feels like no time at all.
um, you know, things are much better than those for there's a saying that kind of goes along with, and it becomes very familiar and true to you when you lose someone you love so dearly. That year of first is
Mhm.
really really challenging, and it was really challenging. Thanksgiving was always kind of a huge holiday in our family, and we invited everyone and anyone. And if you didn't have a family, come to our house. And that just never, ever looked the same because it was the last time we had all seen him alive. And so I think, yes, it's better. I'm better. Um, I really felt kind of like I fell into a deep dark hole for a while. Just the process of grieving. It's just the yeah, I use a lot of cliches, but I mean they're true. Like the only way through is through. You
Mhm.
can't rush it. It's different for everyone.
It's not a
And
straight line.
no, no way.
Mm-mm.
And you can't stuff it, you can't outrun it, you can't hide from it. So if you don't deal with it, it'll deal with you. And I've experienced that as well. So um you live your life, and you definitely change traditions, and you feel joy, and you laugh again, and little by little you wake up and kind of like, I used to describe grief kind of like walking around with a veil over your face all the time, and the world is kind of muted, and you feel muted. You
Mhm.
just don't feel that you can muster the ability to really experience joy and spontaneity or vivaciousness or zest. You just can't experience it way down deep in your heart for sometimes. That's my experience. I think the best way to describe it physically is like, one of the things I noticed about my mom after my brother died is that when we would smile for pictures, even if it was a candid smile, like maybe somebody caught her, we were laughing, she would smile, but her smile no longer reached her eyes. And
Mm.
that's how I felt like I was doing life. I got up every single day. I got dressed every single day. I did all the things, from the outside I look like, oh, she's got it together. But inside you feel a hole.
Mm. That I mean, and your story has so many different facets to it, Melissa. I mean, he was your brother, but he was really like your little sidekick.
Yeah.
And seeing those younger people, I've got younger cousins, seeing them grow up and kind of find their way, and not wanting to be preachy, but being like, oh, you know what you need. It's tough. It's tough. So, and then I just think about the Thanksgiving piece of it. Thanksgiving will never be the same.
No. Mm-mm.
It's
No.
so tough. And I can't I'm just impressed with the way you're able to talk about it, and the way you're able to, obviously you've done some work around it, and you've sorted at least sorted out some of your feelings. How did you get to a place where you were able to verbalize what happened?
Um, so, I'm tremendously lucky in that I have an incredible support system, and I call them like it's mostly females, but like my tribe, my girls. I mean, my husband is incredibly supportive. Um, my family, everyone just stepped in and kind of really just allowed me to be and to talk and to
Mhm.
cry and to whatever I needed to do. I've always been pretty good at articulating myself verbally and with writing, and that's kind of when my brother died, I began writing again, and it was just poetry or just journaling consistently. I read a book that really helped me. It's called "It's Okay That You're Not Okay," because there's a lot of stigma and just a lot of isolation around grief, and not even I know not even so much in my world, but watching my mom kind of lose friends, and people just don't know how to respond,
Right.
especially like when you lose a child. I mean, I felt a range of emotions. Like, I was so pissed off at my brother. I mean, I was angry. Like, how could you leave me with this freaking mess to clean up?
Mhm.
And mom is my mom, she was never the same after that. She already had this really crazy life. And that was just kind of like the linchpin of, that's it. She's spiraling. And so I felt this sense of responsibility to be everything to her, for her. My family became her reason, so to
Mhm.
speak. And it was a lot. It was a lot of emotions, and just feeling this loss of, I was looking forward to experiencing things with my brother as an adult, that and to see who he would become, and to
Right.
see how his life would unfold, and to see him kind of fulfill his potential that I knew he had. So, and there was, as I said, he was the passenger, and there was a trial surrounding that. So that was uncomfortable and difficult. And so I tried to just put one foot in front of the other. I'm not saying that I did like everything I did was a healthy coping mechanism, because I'd be lying if I said that. But I think I had a lot of really great people in place to support me and help me and call me out when I was going too far in one direction.
Mhm. Well, I mean, it's real, and I appreciate your realness because that's what this platform's about: real women, real stories, real lessons. So I think it's so courageous for you to say, hey, you know what, it's not like I went and here's the handbook that I use. You're like, yeah, I might tear out a couple pages of that handbook because I
Yeah.
didn't do everything perfectly. But
Mhm.
that just means congratulations, welcome to the
Yeah.
human race.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Exactly.
so it's what is the biggest lesson that you learned due to everything that happened?
The biggest lesson that I learned is I know this in my head, and I would love to say that I practice it and I live it, but reality is that I don't all the time, because it's a little bit impossible just in the juggle of daily life. But I think the biggest lesson I learned is that is time is not promised to you.
Mm.
And I try to really, if I see like, I see you, even if I don't know you, if I think your hair is beautiful or you have a nice shirt on, or I will compliment you.
Mhm.
Um, there were a lot of regrets I had in my brother because I dished out some tough love on him. And what I think it taught me is that didn't freaking work. It did not work. It just alienated him more. And so I really had to kind of like learn how to soften myself a little bit, and really just try and embrace every moment, embrace the positive moments, embrace the suck, embrace it all. And anything that I was afraid of doing, I've done so many things since my I've experienced a lot of loss. Like my brother died, and then a couple years later my mom died. But the gift in that is I'm not afraid. Like I've taken singing lessons. I started writing. I started a blog. Anything that I was a little bit trepidatious or hesitant, or I just have that kind of like I turned 40 and I've survived all this and I won't say that word on your show, but I don't care. I'm living life and I'm
Mhm.
doing it, and I don't care how I look, and I don't care if I'm terrible at it. I'm going to do it. I'm doing what I want to do.
Right. That's Yeah, I love that, and I love the fact that you came on, you were so transparent, I really appreciate that, and people could see your heart through your story, and I know you talked about the fact you started a blog. So, online, if someone is on the online space and they're looking for you, Melissa, where would they find you?
My blog is www.reinventionisAmutha.com. Same thing on Facebook, and my Instagram handle is the same. So, and that's kind of it. Just me reinventing myself, getting out of that comfort space, and it's kind of my adventures in self-discovery and
Wonderful.
superficial stuff too. And
Oh,
fun,
well,
yeah.
no, I mean, you gotta have life. You gotta have
Dallas,
some superficial stuff, right?
absolutely.
It can't be all seriousness.
Uh-uh.
So, I mean, that's great because I think a lot of women especially they come to a space or place in their lives and they look around and they're like, I just don't how did I get here? And I don't like it here. And so I want to change. So I think that your writing could be a touchstone for many, many women who are trying to reinvent themselves as well. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
sharing that.
yeah. I mean, that's the hope, and just not being ashamed or afraid or alone, recognizing that, hey, this is like a human condition. This is not something that I alone am experiencing. You know, we all, I think, have those moments where it's like, whoa, this is not where I thought I would wind up.
Absolutely. Yes. So, well, thank you so much, Melissa, for being on the show. I really appreciate you and I really, really appreciate your authenticity. And I'm glad you said yes when I,
Thank you for asking me. I'm
no,
glad you asked me.
oh, no problem. I think that your story is really going to help a lot of people. So I think that's the most important thing. So, and
Thank
that's
you.
it for this episode of Lessons in Savvy Living, everyone. Until next time, stay savvy. Bye.